Another episode of the FMA Dumpster Fire. My name is Paulo Rubio, aka GN. And if you love the Filipino martial arts, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so that you'll be made aware of whenever I get into one of these things and talk about these things. So today we are going to talk about defending sewing machine stabs while there's a lead hand post or grab. We are going to talk about a non Filipino martial arts approach, why the Filipino martial arts approach may not be appropriate, why it may be appropriate. We are going to do a lot of talking and a lot of video watching today. I am joined via video, not live, but we're going to dissect a video that Todd Fossey from Integrative Defense Strategies has posted. And let me tell you, as a Filipino martial artist, I am deeply offended by the things this man had to say, and we will address that together. Well, I'm going to represent offended mentalities anyway. I'm going to attempt to smooth it out so that we can have a discussion about really important shit. So if you're down with that, let's get the show started.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished. No.
Get up. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh,
Get up. Get up.
before it launched the counterattack. Man, what an intro. I get so fired up. I listen to that song like a lot. It gets me fired up. It sets the tone for some beautiful discussions, passionate, heated discussions. And today, we're going to talk about that dang Todd Fossey guy again. Always talking his friggin' self-defense and appropriately contextualizing his findings and sharing them with passion. You can see why folks can be offended. Today, we're going to talk about the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
You like that? All right, we're going to watch a video featuring Todd Fossey where he addresses quite confidently, appropriately confidently, one of his findings as to how to defend what he says constitutes roughly 70% of like knife attacks. Pretty big percentage. Right off the top, he's going to talk about Filipino martial arts and why it may not be appropriate to view it from that perspective. And we're going to talk about that. So start getting offended. And then I'm just freaking kidding. All right, y'all ready for this? Let's party.
All right, guys, what's going on? Todd here, IDS headquarters.
Turn it up.
Video now for 8 hours on a knife defense series that we're going to be putting out on our new website at idscitizendefender.com.
I'm not used to Todd whispering.
Be a streaming service for you, but you guys have never seen us put out too much on knife defense, if anything at all. We have an extensive curriculum. We've literally been shooting for 8 hours, and we probably have another hour and a half to go. So there's a lot that we've put into this, years and years and years of research that we found to be most effective and most productive that we vetted at the highest levels, including vetting it with Greg Nelson himself over the course of a prolonged period of time. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, but did you test it against invading colonial forces in the jungles of the Philippines, bruh?
So there's no possible way I can get into every variation and every.
By the way, guys, I'm totally joking through this, right? This is some serious shit. But you know, we can approach it with lightheartedness and focus simultaneously. Let's keep listening to Todd. By the way, there's going to be a volume discrepancy. Todd is in his indoor voice right now. But trust me, you're going to want to see the rest of this, okay? So stick with me if you've made it this far.
Option, everything that we have, but I want to put out something with what is the most common type of edged weapon attack and threat, by the way, but we're going to deal with the attack right now. The most, over 70%.
Pause. He made a distinction between knife threat and knife attack. Take note, it's really important.
Of edged weapon attacks happen in this way. And there are going to be considerations when you're armed, and that's what IDS does, right? We do integrated combatives. So this is for armed citizen defenders and for armed guardians.
There's another very important contextual point for a lot of Filipino martial artists. When we talk about armed, the pinnacle of our force multipliers is knifey knife, whereas Todd is going to be talking about having gunny guns. All right, but still, enough bridges, enough bridges, homie. Pay attention.
There's not a lot out there. I'll just be honest with you. I know I piss everybody off, but there's not a lot of good stuff out there on knife defense. There just isn't. For those of you who practice FMA that are watching, and I know there probably are some that practice FMA, we don't spend a lot of time on dealing with FMA attacks because they're extremely rare. It's extremely rare that somebody who practices FMA are practicing using FMA. And you know, so most of these attacks are happening in an ambush fashion. They're felt before they're seen, where the knife is concealed and they're concealing their intent. And next thing you know, the attack is happening. 70% of the time, the research shows.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Right. And this is why contextually the FMA approach may not be appropriate to the broad majority of people who may have a limited scope and time to learn something. Right. I think he addresses the sophistication of Filipino martial arts attacks as not being a common enough threat to build a self-defense foundation on. Perhaps if people choose to, they can pursue sophistication. But again, we're dealing with this. We're dealing with this right now. Pop, pop, pop. We're not dealing with, rapid trajectory changes in order to deceive our opponent's defenses. None of that stuff. All that stuff is beautiful to me. And depending on who you are, that may be relevant to you. But we're really like putting this under a microscope and understanding. If I were to just believe the data right now, that this represents 70% of attacks, right? So immediately where my brain is going is that there is some sort of a delineation to be considered from practitioners, and most importantly from instructors, right? If you're an instructor and you're going to propose Filipino martial arts as a self-defense option, that ought to change how you teach the curriculum, shouldn't it? Or what elements of the curriculum you're going to prioritize, how you're going to prioritize and communicate that based on the people in front of you. Filipino martial arts, from whatever discipline or system you choose to view that lens from, there's a variety of stuff. It is incredibly deep. And I think arts like PTK essentially try to curate and codify that which is impossible, right? The vastness of the potential ways that someone with a knife, two knives, no knife, one knife, longer knife, shorter knife, stick, sword, maybe he's got a shield, right? So an art like PTK attempts to curate all of that and attempts to present it in a way that makes sense for the most amount of people. Well, how self-defensey is that? How long have you got? What experiences are you carrying with you when you enter into something like a Pikiti Tersha? These are all important considerations.
They're using this free hand to control the space. They're usually grabbing onto your shirt. So now they're controlling this kill zone. And that's extremely dangerous. There's some good stuff out there, I know. I'll just be honest with you, I know I piss everybody off, but
All right, how about now? Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Testing, testing. Man, this live stuff. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, all right. We're good. We can continue. Yo, man, this friggin' live thing. This is nuts, bro. Thank you for your patience. If you guys are sticking around, good on you, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. All right, let's get back to
all right,
Todd
guys,
Fossey.
what's going on?
I can hear him.
We're
Therefore,
at
you
his
can hear him.
headquarters,
Where were we?
and that's extremely dangerous. There's some good stuff out there, I know. They're usually grabbing onto your shirt.
Thank you, guys.
So now they're controlling this kill zone. And that's extremely dangerous. There's some good stuff out there, I know. Aaron Giannetti at Endeavor Self-Defensive Fitness in Columbus, Ohio has some good stuff on this.
Dude's a
I think
beast.
that we've come up with some really great stuff for dealing with this too. And Greg and I have spent a fair amount of time on this together.
Shout out Coach Greg Nelson.
So for whatever that's worth, I'm not trying to name drop, I'm just saying I've spent a lot of time with this at a very high level. Okay. Generally speaking, we want to say that if I'm outside of the range of the weapon, I want to stay outside of the range of the weapon. But if I'm going to be within range of the weapon, then I need to get inside the control. But what's tricky about this, I'm having a hard time getting away and I'm having a hard time getting close if he's controlling this space. Makes sense? We have an overarching principle that we like to teach here at IDS. We call it get to the 2-on-1. I want to get 2 hands and 2 arms on that knife hand and that knife arm. That's my overarching principle. And I want to do it in a way that is as gross motor as possible and is as simple as possible and compress time under extreme stress when someone's trying to kill me. I have to know how to fight my way to this. This is a huge, huge, huge hole in the firearms world.
Huge.
A lot of firearms people just believe all you gotta do is shoot the guy. You need to be a great shooter. Just spend more time competition shooting, things like that. Well, guess what? This is one of the highest probability of murder, attempted murder, or aggravated assault. Right here, what we're looking at. 80% of simple assaults are happening at contact distance, aren't they? 80% of assaults are simple assaults rather than happen at contact distance. What are the most common types of aggravated assaults? Impact weapons and edge weapons. And what distance are those taking place at? If you think you're just going to draw your weapon and that's magically going to stop the threat, I'm sorry, you've deluded yourself. You just have.
Yes. Shout out to Filipino martial artists too. In that regard, I know this is inappropriate. But the sophistication carried by Filipino martial artists in terms of how to wield that blade is a freaking scary thing. And we think about these things. We think about the counter to what Todd is about to discuss. And it's a good thing that he's about to show us. But, hey, if you're a Filipino martial artist right now, I want you guys for just a moment to reserve this idea of wanting to counter or proposing what the counter to Todd's solution will be. We will have a moment for that, but for now, let's be open-minded, right? Because again, Filipino martial arts, we think on a different plane, right? And of course, we know there's going to be a counter to everything, but we're talking about self-defense here, right? Just for a second. So let's halt that and let's just continue to have an open mind and listen to one of my FMA instructors, Todd Fossey.
You have been convinced to suspend your disbelief or create a belief system around something that just isn't real. And you can love me or you can hate me for saying that, or everything in between. I don't really care. I know what the research says, and I know what our years of research has done, and this is a lab. We're constantly looking to disprove our own thesis.
Preach, brother.
This is where it's happening. By the way, I'm going to be teaching seminars on this down in Oklahoma City at the.
All right, damn it, I can't help myself. All right, so what's the FMA answer to that? What's the martial arts answer to that? Don't let it get there. I know that's what you guys are all thinking. Don't let it get to that point, right? But your opinion is valid, but the data says that this shit happens. 70 to 80% of the times it happens. So if your answer to this and your mind automatically goes to, well, I wouldn't let it get there to begin with, that's problematic. If you're tasked with being a self-defense instructor, again, philosophically, the point is valid. Don't let it get there. Don't put yourself in the situation. And then that can lead all the way down the slippery slope where you just don't leave the house. I know, a bit silly. But that's really the philosophical approach, right? Don't let it get there. Don't put yourself in that situation. Avoid that condition. Avoid that circumstance. But 70 to 80% ain't no thing to laugh at, right? Okay. But by the way, if it does get there, who bud, right? I know that's what you guys are all thinking. Pop, pop, who bud. And I mean, you can call who bud whatever you want. It's a universal movement. You see it in wrestling. You might even do it here. So let's keep watching, okay? FMAers. Right, we can continue to love FMA and love our path and still be open-minded and be able to, with an open heart and mind, accept input from a person like Todd Fossey, right? Let's do that together.
SealedHairCarry.com at their Guardian conference this next weekend, 1 week from today, actually, tomorrow, or yesterday and today, and Sunday and tomorrow. So those 3 days, next weekend, I'll be teaching them, along with other stuff. But the overarching principle, getting back, is getting to this 2-on-1. See this? This is what we like. You know where I got this from? Football. I was a quarterback in football. Guess how I received the ball from the center? Like this. You know how hard those snaps come back? That's where I got this from. It's wide and it's strong. I'm extending my arms because my arms are bent. Now he can get at me and he can collapse my arms. But I keep my arms straight and create a platform here. My target is going to be the crease of the elbow. If I can reach that far. If I have shorter arms, I've got T-Rex arms. Right, if I got T-Rex arms, I have to be able to block where I can. But I want to make sure that my arms are extended where I'm blocking. There's going to be a repetition here. 5 to 7 bursts for every 5 seconds. Repetitive motion. Sewing machine. That's how it typically works. So I want to stay on that arm. I want to keep pressure on that arm, and I want to lead the stance. I'm driving into him. I'm not driving. This is what most people do. They'll panic and they'll start to back away and they'll fall down. That's what the research shows. They'll fall down. They'll end up on top of them with the knife, or they'll be stabbing them while they're standing. And they're in the kill zone. They're trying to stop. Right? They're trying to control from here. It's too. They're behind the reactionary gap. But if I'm here, it's hard for him to do that. Now notice what I'm doing. I know that arm's going to retract, so I'm staying on it. I'm keeping pressure on him. I'm driving in.
Key.
Now I can make my way down to the wrist to control. If he has long sleeves, I can grab the sleeves. I'm controlling 2-on-1 with everything that I've got. Because if someone has this and they're working in close, they want one thing and one thing only. They want you dead.
All right. Very passionate, Todd, and I love it. That's a really important distinction to make because oftentimes martial artists will get caught up in what if-isms, loops, right? What if the attacker all of a sudden decides to punch with that lead hand? What happens and blah, 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 blah. It appears to me as if these what if questions manifest most often in, repeated examination of tutorials. But that's not how things really manifest, right? Right, guys? There's a counter for everything. There's a logical counter for everything. But when it's happening, and particularly if you've never seen it before, you've never felt it before, then those what ifs can run wild. They can grow, and I think there, to a degree, that's a healthy thing to do. But don't get caught up in it. Right? Get out there, get on the mats, and test it out. And be aware of some training biases, some cognizant biases, because you know what's going to happen. Then you can formulate a counter and almost be predictive, and you can come up with false conclusions by doing it that way. So just be mindful of that. Let's continue to watch Todd Fossey. Sorry to interrupt, Todd. You're doing great. I love this.
And they want to be as discreet as possible while they do it. That's why they're choosing the knife or the edge weapon. And by the way, I have been stabbed through my hand. Okay?
Yeah, but how many times, bro?
Everyone else I know who's been stabbed, most of the time they get stabbed through their hand because they think they're being punched. Again, they think they're being punched. They don't know. It's being felt before it's being seen. That's what happened to me. She went through my hand. Okay? So, again, he's controlling the space. I'm getting a 2-on-1. So now how do I defeat this arm? They're either doing this consciously or unconsciously. Doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is I defeat this arm. Here's how we found to defeat it. I want to lower my level and dip underneath it, and or pull the arm as I lower this arm as I lower my level and dip underneath it. This is not intuitive. This is counterintuitive.
It seems very
You
counterintuitive.
understand that?
Yeah, because you're moving
Find
close.
my way to this. This is not the answer to everything. Make sense?
What? Now he's offending gun people. Todd, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing?
So I'm here, I'm applying pressure. Now how do I defeat this arm once I get down to the wrist? I dip and lower my level. Now it's simple. Arm drag, break range. Now I can either run away or transition to higher force. Now notice how I'm using my light. I have another force multiplier while I give commands, and or discharge my weapon if I'm justified to do so. I'm not getting into all those details right now. It's too much. Okay? The other option from there is I can switch to a Russian tie. If I need to control this person, let's just say, see that bag right there? That's Joe. Let's just pretend that Joe is my wife. I need to control this person. If I do an arm drag here successfully, I get below it, and I do an arm drag, where are they going to go? They go right at her. Or pretend there's somebody else. So if I need to maintain control, one, I can stay here. They're not getting at her. And yes, I know there are several other options. I'm keeping it simple for the purposes of this video.
Okay, there are several other options, and I'm keeping it simple for the purposes of this video. That comment alone, guys, take note, or just remember, because I already know you already know this, but adding these brief contextual notes will prevent so much of the usual internet bliggity bloggity blue, can you do this and use the Can you do that? So when you're making these videos and you're presenting a focused idea, the natural tendency for martial artists and Filipino martial artists would be, can you do this? I can do this. Because the options are, there's a lot of options, right? Contextually dependent options. But when you say things like, I know there are other options, but we're going to keep it simple and focused for the purposes of this video, we can begin to have great conversations about the thing that is actually being presented, right? So that's an instructor note. Teaching is a separate art. Todd's really good at it.
I can't spend 12 hours talking to you about this to scratch the surface. Seriously.
Good man.
Below. Now I can drive this Russian tie if I need to. I see how fucking good I am. This is the technique that we teach.
This guy, was this guy an uke, a professional uke or something? That knife just went, that knife just went flying. Come on, bro, grip it a little bit harder.
This Russian tie if I need to. I see how fucking good I am. This is the technique that we teach. The knife goes flying out of their hand. Go grab it, Chris.
My hands might be just a little sweaty from today.
Come on, Chris. Right. Get it together. Get it together.
That was accidental. I didn't try to do that. I'm not that good. And by the way, I'm not even going to bother to try and take the knife out of their hand. Have I done it a lot? Mm-hmm. Do I think it's worth it? Uh-uh. How many of you own a knife that is so fucking sharp, you're afraid to look at it wrong?
Me?
You know how quickly that can cut you to the bone? You know how
Yes.
quickly you can bleed out if that thing nicks an artery? All right? So I'm here, same principles. I lead a dance, I don't follow it. I apply pressure, I dip below the arm.
Like you watch a video like this while you're taking a shit, and you might miss that little gem, I lead the dance, I don't follow. Come on, Todd. Awesome.
Now I get to my Russian tie. Now I have a shitload of dumps, trips, and sweeps. My goal is to get them on the ground. I'm not taking them down. I am not taking them down. I'm dumping them, tripping them, or sweeping them. Why do I want to go to the ground with somebody who has a knife when I have a gun? You probably don't know anybody who rolls on the ground with weapons more than I do. You probably don't. There might not even be anybody.
Yeah.
You know
what the hell, man? This guy's offending jiu-jitsu guys now.
how dangerous that is when we're on the ground? You know how dangerous this is when we're on the ground? What kind of dangerous surfaces are we on? 56% chance of more than one attacker. I don't know his skill level on the ground. I don't know what I'm dealing with. We strongly recommend staying away from taking them down where I go to the ground with them. Now, we know sometimes we have to.
Again, brilliant context, right? Because security officers, cops will be like, yeah, I got to take him to the ground. I got to cuff this mother effer. Again, context and presentation is so key. And one of the reasons I wanted to present this to you guys, the Filipino martial arts community, is to get some teaching points as well. We could all, if we all say we're students, right? But if teaching is a separate art, we ought to be students of that art as well. And I just think Todd presents great examples. And for me, like, I skimmed through this video when he first sent it to me, but I had a moment today when I watched it in detail, and I was like, this is really good stuff in here, worth discussing. So thank you, Todd. Thank you guys very much. If you're with me so far, 28 minutes deep into this, good on you. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Hopefully you're not taking dumps for 28 minutes. But who am I to judge, right? I shouldn't. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. But enough about poop. Let's get back to the good stuff.
Sometimes the circumstances just call for it. That's just the way that it is. And sometimes it just happens, but we don't practice it. We practice dumps, trips, and sweeps while we remain standing and they go to the ground so we can break range and get to safety as quickly as possible. We think it's a bad habit to be in, and if you're offended, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do you the disservice of saying otherwise. Okay?
Word.
So once I've hit this Russian tie position, I have lots of options. One, I'm behind the arm. Two, my gun is safe. Now there's a ton of stuff that I can do. He's probably going to bend his arm. I've got an arm weave. You don't.
Hey, wrist weave.
I've got a...
You know who teaches that? Chad Lyman, Jared Wihungi. It's contained in the C4C curriculum, and it's It's contained in a 4-count lock flow in the TRICOM curriculum as well. That wrist weave, if you guys, man, learn that wrist weave, it is, first of all, it is painful. It is very, very painful. But in the absence of pain, because pain compliance is unreliable, there is leverage at play. So if you guys are looking for tutorials, if you actually want to learn how to do the wrist weave properly, get a hold of Todd Fossey, Greg Nelson, Chad Lyman, Jared Weehungy. There's a bunch of people that, man, wrist weave. It doesn't look like much, but yo, that shit is painful and it's got leverage supporting it. So even if there's no pain, you're going down, sucker.
Spiral dump from that
Spiral
Russian
dump.
high. He pushes on me, I can spiral him down. I've got inside trips from there. You can hit this. Get inside trips from there. We got more inside trips from there. I've got back trips from there. We call this the head hook. It's one of our new favorite dumps. You just come back here, spiral it down. Thus I control that arm so it doesn't stab me. I can go on and on and on.
Word.
This is an important topic that gets dramatically overlooked, and there's a lot of silly shit out there. And people get really offended and pissed off, and I'm sorry if you're offended and pissed off, but I care too much. You don't have to do what I tell you to do. All we're asking you to do is consider what we had to say. We have fuckloads more of this. Fuckloads.
Word.
We're
listening.
A lot of thought and research and development.
We're listening to you, Todd.
I'm not saying that we won't abandon some of it so that we can improve it and move on. We will. God, I hope we do. But I promise you, for all the right reasons, we'll be putting out really good stuff for you, whether you're armed or whether you're unarmed. This is one small piece, but it's high probability what we've been talking about. All right? So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll do the best I can to answer them. But I know that a lot of these questions they'll have to happen in person or in video because it's just too much for me to explain all the nuances to everything. Fighting is filled with nuances. The variables are never repeatable. Patterns are, but variables and specifics are not. It's not an exact science. All right? All right, thanks for watching.
Yo, I hope you guys enjoy that. Listen, for me, and I don't want to infuse my personal beliefs on what Filipino martial arts is or ought to be, but for me, I love classical. I love traditional. I value our history. I value our art. I value our culture. But the Filipino martial arts, for me, is a living and breathing philosophy that is meant to be relevant no matter where I live and no matter what time in history I happen to live in. And so it's important for me as a Filipino martial artist to include the philosophies of people like Todd Fossey, people like Chad Lyman, and of course, folks like Jared Weehungy. It's really, really important to maintain the relevance of the Filipino martial arts over time, space, distance, circumstance, condition, frameworks. It's really important for me to do that. And I don't feel like I have to abandon the classical, the traditional, the historical, the artistic in that pursuit. Maybe I just have way too much time in my hands. And if you don't, it would be worth your effort to spend some time with the people that I've mentioned to learn a little bit about integrative defense strategies as an organization and as a philosophy. Integrative defense strategies, right? So I really hope you guys enjoy this presentation. I hope you find value in it. If you do, please share it with your friends, people that you care about. You guys can visit the IDS Facebook page and watch this video in its entirety and more videos like it. You can go to www.thisisids.com to explore some of these concepts, these algorithms, these methodologies, these philosophies that are being generated from that camp and its network of individuals. I don't find it to be a necessity to delineate my path of as a Filipino martial artist with ingesting information from as broad a perspective as possible. I think it's incumbent upon us as Filipino martial artists to continue to do that. And I don't think it's contradictory to this idea of wanting to be a purist or not a preservationist, right? I mean, purists are going to be purists. Can't help those people. But if your intention is to preserve the art history and culture and to study that, it doesn't exclude you from wanting to intake information like this. So, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to FMA Source on YouTube. And yeah, let's continue to push things forward. Even though he doesn't accept my endorsement as being one of my FMA instructors, Todd Fossey is 100% one of my FMA instructors based on what I want FMA to be for me. And if that's not in line with what you do, then there is no need for us to clash because I respect your path, right? And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching this. Thank you for being a part of this community that we're building together. I think we're doing great things for the Filipino martial arts. I think we're having great discussions, great dialogue. I might need to change the name of this podcast pretty damn soon, but I'm going to try to keep the fire lit as long as I can. And look, this is freaking awesome for me. Mata na Bagyo, Eye of the Hurricane, Grandmaster Carlito Bonjok comments with I learned a lot from that. Thank you. No, sir. Thank you, GM, Grandmaster Carlito. No one denies your passion and love for the Filipino martial arts, and yet your open-mindedness continues to be an inspiration for me from the moment we first connected in Las Vegas. I knew you were a special ambassador of the Filipino martial arts. This guy is from the old school. He's Stockton. He's Philippines. He's Jungle Machete. And yet he drops a comment like this. I learned a lot from that. Thank you. No, thank you, Grandmaster. Thank you, Todd Fossey. Thank you to the community that we are building here. Man, we are changing things for the better. We are reclaiming Filipino martial arts as an individual and highly personal exploration without shedding the collective value of our art, history, and culture. If you believe in that vision, man, I welcome you to this community with open arms. And I'm letting you know that there are a lot of people out there who believe in this. So one more time, guys, thank you. Wow, that was a good one. Thank you for allowing me to present this material to you, for being interactive and engaged with me. My God, what a blessing it is for me to wake up in the morning, have some coffee, get some nicotine in me, and discuss these concepts with you guys, the FMA community. You guys are absolutely amazing. You guys are the fuel that drives this. Sometimes, certainly it feels futile sometimes, sometimes it can feel very lonely to propose this personal exploration of the Filipino martial arts, ingesting information from all different sources, even those that aren't FMA sources. But that is for me, and I believe for us, what FMA is. It is a deeply personal pursuit, and it would be a disservice to ourselves to block off intentionally sources of information that can serve us. Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. Jungle machete. I'm going, yeah, man. Bro, you are urban. You are jungle. You are nuanced, just like the rest of us. But I love it. So, with that, thank you so much for joining me here at FMA Source. Until next time, my name is Paulo Rubio, aka GN. As always, thank you. Peace.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished! No!
Get up. Never got no up. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh.
Get up. Get up.
Before it, launch the counterattack.
Oh!